Welcome back to another episode of the Meal Prep Perspective, where I share my realistic and healthy meal prep process from start to finish. Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and I love helping people simplify the meal prep process. In this episode today, I'll walk you through my full meal prep process. On the menu this week, for breakfast, I'm making cardamom and fig protein muffins and pairing that with a squash and egg frittata. For lunch, coconut lime chicken with basil, lots of veggies, and a side of brown rice. For dinner, I'm making my beloved sweet potato chili and pairing it with macaroni noodles. All of my meals are balanced, healthy, and nutrient dense. If you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, get stronger, or simply improve your health, meal prep could be part of the solution. And whether you're new to meal prep or you're a seasoned pro, there's something here for everyone. And with that, let's get started.
First thing I always do when I meal prep is the thing that will take the longest and can be going on in the background while other things are still happening. I've realized that one of the keys to successfully meal prepping is starting with this first step. If you've ever tried to make more than one dish at a time, you know exactly what I mean. And meal prepping is essentially cooking 30 different meals all at once. And to avoid feeling overwhelmed, I try to organize my cooking process into a flow that's manageable. So today I'm using fresh figs for my breakfast meal, so I'm gonna make them into a jam, and once I get them quartered and diced, I'll put them into my saucepan. Then I'll add some maple syrup to them along with some ground cardamom, which I actually measured so I could save it for the recipe. If you've been here with me for a while, you know I don't usually do recipes, but I'm really trying. I definitely understand how valuable it is. It's just always been so difficult for me, but I'm trying. I'm doing it for y'all. Anyway, I'll get that onto the stovetop with medium heat, and I also saved a few of the prettiest looking figs and made some thin slices so I can use that as a topping. And I'm always so shocked at what a difference it makes when I take the time to think about the presentation of meal prep. It makes it feel like you're eating something from a fantastic restaurant when that restaurant is really just your kitchen. In my experience, both as a personal trainer helping people and especially women working on their health, fitness, and nutrition goals, and for my graduate work in nutrition, eating foods you like is a big part of being able to stick to any kind of plan, a complete overhaul, or just trying to eat more nutritious meals. And that's why I always recommend eating things you like. And I'll add to that now by saying, make things look like something you want to eat. All right, and back to cooking. I've been doing some major sous chef work while I've been yapping, starting with dicing yellow squash. Thankfully, it's made so much faster because I use a food chopper. I didn't always have one, but I'm so glad that I have one now. I hope if this is something that's driving you a little crazy with meal prep, that you're able to invest and get one for yourself too. I'll link the one that I use. I've been really happy with this one so far, and if you've started using one, I would love to know. So please comment if you've started using this or if you want to start using one. I always love to know what's actually helpful for people. This has made such a big difference for me, but I want to know if it's helping you. I slice the squash first into medallions, and then they're easy to process through the food chopper. I did the same thing to my sweet potatoes, which again speeds by if you're using the food chopper, but if you're short on time, this is definitely the time of year when a lot of grocery stores will have them pre-cut. While I've been cutting all this produce, I've also been periodically checking my fig jam, giving it a stir here and there. Once I was happy with the texture, I removed the pan from the heat so it could cool off. And some of the other things I've chopped were celery and then green peppers. Now I'm on to cutting my onions, which I always cut on a separate cutting board that I use especially for onions and garlic. I'll do the same thing I did to my squash and my sweet potatoes by cutting the onions into medallions and then running them through the food chopper. After my onions, I'll move on to cutting jalapenos, and I also try to think about cutting things like the onions and jalapenos last in the food chopper, since they'll kind of pass on that flavor to anything that comes after them. And you might have noticed I switched to the smaller dice for the jalapeno. I love that I can just quickly change this little plate, and then I have a completely different size that everything can be cut into. And just like that, all my veggies are prepped. This is probably my least favorite part of meal prep, so I'm always so happy when this step is done. And now I can start to roast my yellow squash, and I'm keeping the seasoning pretty simple here with olive oil, salt, and pepper. I don't think that I realized how much squash I had to roast until I spread it out on my sheet pans, and that's a lot, but hey, we love our nutrients, so that works for me. Those will roast in the oven, and then I can start my dinner meal, my chili that I'm making in the Instant Pot. And I've made this chili so many times, and one time I made it for a bunch of friends, and I was literally harassed for the recipe afterwards because they were so obsessed, and I can't even blame them. So you're probably wondering, what is it that I do to make my chili so special? And you'll have to wait to see. I do keep it pretty simple to start off though, so I'll saute onions, celery, carrots in olive oil and salt, and I love using the saute function on the Instant Pot. That was such a game changer for me. And you know me, since we're meal prepping, of course we're doing more than one task at a time, so I'm sauteing my ground chicken for my breakfast meal for the savory part of breakfast. I've been using this in place of breakfast sausage because ground chicken is actually less expensive than breakfast sausage, and I've been liking it more in breakfast anyway. Once it's fully cooked, I'll set it aside in a separate bowl so it can cool off, and then I can use my pan to cook my ground turkey for the chili. I'm only cooking this separately from the chili in the Instant Pot because there's simply just not room in the Instant Pot. I wish they made a bigger one, or maybe it's time for me to get a commercial one for meal prep. Maybe you also saw that I had to switch to a wooden spoon for these veggies in the Instant Pot. I don't know about you, but mine has this hot spot in the back. It always burns things if I'm not super careful. And if the Instant Pot has any signs of food burn while it's pressure cooking, it will turn itself off. That's happened to me before. So keep an eye out for that so you don't make the same mistake that I did. All right, anyway, once I'm happy with the mirepoix veggies, I added in some garlic. I used the minced jarred garlic and I sauteed that. Then I added in sweet potatoes followed by diced tomatoes, and then beans. I'm adding a jar of pinto beans, kidney beans, and a can of lentils. I rinsed all of that off in water and drained it and then added it in here. I just love how much color the sweet potatoes add to the chili. I feel like it just looks like fall now. I'll mix that all together and then I can add in some water. I just refill both cans of the diced tomatoes that I added in, and I also added a can of tomato paste, and I'll do the same thing once the tomato paste is out, filling with water and then pouring that back in. And once this is stirred up, it's time to add my spices, and you might be surprised by the first spice I always add to chili, and I think this is why when I've made this, it is so beloved. Of course, I always add the classics: cumin, chili powder, salt, pepper, but the thing I always add first is cinnamon, and I swear by this. I also add cayenne pepper, and I don't measure any of these, but I usually do a decent job of estimating. I always err on the side of less. If you're learning to guesstimate, you can taste this now and see if it needs any adjusting, but adding that cinnamon in will really take this to the next level. It'll make it feel so warm and cozy, but just kind of that little something extra that will leave everyone saying, what is in this and why is it so delicious? It's at this point that I also added in my diced jalapenos, and I'm ready to get this started in the Instant Pot now. And by that I mean it's time to start pressure cooking this. I'm gonna set mine on high for 40 minutes. If I had more time, I probably would have set it for an hour, but 40 minutes will get the job done. I'm also always really cognizant of the steam area being under my cabinet, so I always turn it out a little bit. And you could definitely make this with a slow cooker or even just do it on the stovetop, but I love being able to just push the button and walk away. And now we can get started on our next task. We are moving right along. I need to get my roasted zucchini out of the oven, and I also need to clear some room. I need this sheet pan, so I'll transfer one of the contents of the pans right away into my giant bowl, and then I'll get the other pans out of the oven too. And once all my yellow squash are into my large bowl, I'm gonna grab the ground turkey from the back of the stove, and I'm just quickly breaking it up and putting it into a bowl that I'll add into the fridge. My fig jam is all cooled off. I'll give it a stir just to check the texture, and then I'll grab my ground chicken and I'll do the same kind of crumbly thing I did to the ground turkey and follow that with my yellow squash. I also sprayed the containers with coconut oil spray. It's just my preferred spray. I feel like it's the best non-stick on the glass. I've got about half a cup of cottage cheese, and I'm gonna immersion blend it until it's smooth, and then I'll add in my eggs and follow that with milk. And these are kind of like a savory muffin, so in a separate bowl, I'm adding flour and baking powder and salt. And if you wanted to add any other herbs, either fresh or dried, that would be great here. Maybe like chives would be good, or like everything but the bagel seasoning, whatever you want. And then I'll mix the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients, and then I'll just portion this out into the containers. And now I can start the sweet part of breakfast. I always use my base recipe and I change the flavor every time I make it so it doesn't taste the same week after week. Usually I use frozen fruit to keep the cost down, or I'll use another type of fruit if it's on sale, like the figs were this week. And I have made so many different versions of this over the years. Maybe I should do like a best of series naming all my favorite flavors of this one, because I feel like this recipe is just so versatile. So once I mix together my dry ingredients, I'll separately mix together my wet ingredients and actually add those into my fig jam. And I immersion blended just for a second because I wanted to bring everything together but still wanted some of that figgy texture. So then we'll add the wet ingredients into the dry and get it portioned into my meal prep containers. And now for the cutest part, our reserved fig slices. I'll add these on top. Adding these on top made me so happy, and I knew I would just enjoy eating them every day and that they'd kind of feel like they came from a bakery and not just my oven. So once those go in the oven, then we can head back to our stovetop. In some olive oil, I'm gonna start browning some onions and I'll let those cook while I get my snack into the oven. I'm roasting frozen edamame, and yes, I'm doing it from frozen, and I saw a lot of other creators say it was fine to roast them from frozen and just add some salt, and you'll have to see how they turn out at the end. I don't always meal prep snacks, but this week I just really wanted something that was kind of like crunchy and salty for a snack, and I don't know if you've ever tried the prepackaged ones, and I love them, so I thought let me just try making these from home and see how it goes. Because edamame is a really nutrient-dense snack, it's high in fiber and protein. It's something I just really enjoy eating, and I love having a snack option that's not just a sweet snack. And once those go into the oven, we can come back to the stovetop. My onions are looking great, and to them I'll add some green peppers. These are the ones I cut up from earlier, and once those have cooked for a minute, I'll add in these sliced mushrooms that are frozen. Shout out to one of my subscribers, Mo, because we were talking about this in the comments the other day, our love for mushrooms and our hatred for washing and cleaning mushrooms. So Mo, these are ready to use, which feels like a huge win. Try them and let me know if you like them. And it's probably around this point in every meal prep session of mine where I start feeling tired and I wish all of this was done already. And after doing this for so many years, I've decided that this feeling is completely normal. And sometimes it feels like more of a sacrifice than others, but I know I'll be so happy during the week when I don't have to try to think about coordinating meals or ordering takeout or what's in the pantry, what's in the fridge. It is absolutely worth it to me just for the peace of mind. The older I get, the more that peace of mind just means everything to me. And now it's crunch time with so much going on at the same time, and I feel like I still have so much to do. 2 of the breakfast meals are out of the oven, with the rest of them cooking just a little bit more. I zested and juiced limes for my coconut lime chicken. I've got pasta boiling on the stove to pair with my chili, and I'm adding kale into my chili too. I personally like to add the kale right at the end so it doesn't break down so much in the Instant Pot. I also need to add my ground turkey back in. There's a lot going on. Definitely give yourself a pep talk if you need it. Alright, so we'll set our chili to the side while we wait for the pasta to finish cooking. I highly recommend cooking the pasta to al dente, or even just a little bit under al dente so it doesn't get mushy, because ask this Italian girl, there's literally nothing worse than mushy pasta. The rest of the breakfast meals finished baking, so I got those out on the counter to cool. The edamame was still a little soft, so I let it continue cooking, and then once the pasta was done, I started portioning it into the meal prep containers. And here's where I definitely messed up, and I should have started this chicken so long ago. Confession time, it was on my plan to do this so much earlier because I wanted it to simmer for a lot longer, but I had some technical difficulties with filming, and honestly, I just kind of forgot about the chicken. So I did get it cut up, and then I started sauteing it in olive oil. I sanitized my counter, and then started to get this last meal portioned into the meal prep containers. My brown rice was done cooking in my rice cooker, so I added that in and followed with the stir fry veggies on top. And once my chicken was fully cooked, I added my coconut milk and let it simmer on medium-high heat. This is the part where I was thinking I really wanted it to cook longer. I could have even added the coconut milk in before the chicken was done cooking all the way through if I knew I was gonna simmer it for a long time, but this didn't go exactly to plan. But you know what? I made it work. And my edamame came out of the oven, and this took so much longer to cook than I thought it would. And next time I'll definitely cook it even longer so the beans will get a little crunchier. They were like crunchy, but not like snap, crackle, pop, like crunch, which is what I was looking for. So now I know for next time. And I tempered my lime juice and zest and then poured it in and then added my basil. I tore the basil by hand, and I'll never not love basil in any form, but this just instantly brightened up this dish. I adjusted the salt to taste, and the last thing to do is get everything portioned into the meal prep containers, which leaves me just enough time to say thank you so much for watching. Your support really touches my heart, and I sincerely appreciate it. And if you haven't already, like this video, hit subscribe, say hello in the comments. You know I love to yap and talk with y'all. Can't wait to see you next time. Bye.